and gents, and welcome to Okayama for round 9 of the UK and Ireland Radical Championship. As mentioned, we're here in Okayama, Japan for the 9th round of the championship. For those of you tuning in through YouTube, hello, how are you all doing? If you are watching this live, make sure to get your messages into the chat and let me know who you're here to support if you're just here to watch some fantastic racing. We have 8 minutes remaining in qualifying, and one of the first laps have come through. Simon Edwards pumping in a 1:34.8, and that is a few seconds slower, to say the least, from where he will want to be. Martin Booker has already put in a 1:29.638, which is over 5 seconds quicker than what Simon Edwards has been able to do. One man that we definitely need to keep an eye out for is John McCutcheon, because he is incredibly quick in the radicals, and his first lap is a banker time of a 1:47.5. So he makes his way through the long right-hander and on to the back straight. Here he goes, down into a red gate, and the back end really wants to step out. Sorry, through Piper Corner, and now down into Redmond. Let the car out, pull it back over to the left as you sweep your way into the Hobbs hairpin. Back on the power, use up all of the circuit, and now down into Mike Knight. Using up all of the track, and down into the final corner. Up on the curb, back on the power. Let's see what the lap is going to be for McCutcheon. 23.2 is the quickest lap so far, and John McCutcheon puts in a 26.5. As we mentioned, it is only his first lap so far. It was invalidated as well. Another driver we can keep our eyes on is Paul Clark. He makes his way through turn 1. 24.0, first lap before Mr. Clark. Another driver who's usually very quick is Dan Webster, and he's making his way down the back straight and into the hairpin. Diagonal braking, get it down into first gear, get the steering really turned in, hold it tight on corner exit so that you can get the best run through Revolver, and make your way down into Piper. Have commitment and faith in the front end of the car that it will stick, and that's exactly what it does. Into Redmond, nice and tidy. Now Hobbs. Patient, get on the throttle, back end wants to step out momentarily, back on the power, flat out through Mike Knight, no, never mind, slight lift. It is flat in the Mazdas, but clearly not in the radicals. Maybe tyres aren't fully up to temperature yet for Dan Webster. 23.0 was his first lap, wasn't validated, and a 22.1 for Dan Webster takes him to the top of the timing tower by 0.6 of a second. McCutcheon has just completed his lap. Set a 23.1 P5. Not looking good for John McCutcheon. What about Frankie Dixon? Frankie Dixon dropping down the order. He's making his way right now through turn 1. He's just done a 24.9. What about James Child? He's making his way down into Atwood Curve. Now on the straight, towards the hairpin. Nice and tidy from James Child so far. He makes his way into Hobbs. Let's listen for the left. Could have carried more speed, but you saw the back end wanting to step out for James Child, not quite getting the entry correct into turn 10. They're now down into start-finish line. 35.9 for James Child. 10 seconds off. How's Dave Kirkman doing? Dave Kirkman down into turn 1, 23.3 for him. John McCutcheon on one final lap. He's just done a 22.3, 4 tenths shy of Dan Webster. And Dan Webster not looking to take any prisoners here at Okayama tonight. Got 20 drivers for tonight's race. About 10 of them are done with qualifying. Still got a few out on circuit. John McCutcheon being one of them. On the power, using up all of the track on the exit of Redgate. Oh, so much track, loses the back end. And that is John McCutcheon's qualifying over. Can Frankie Dixon do any better? He's making his way through Piper now. You see the track marks. That might have been left by John McCutcheon, even though they are technically in different sessions. Down into second gear for Redmond. And now up to Hobbs. Back on the power, Frankie Dixon, current best, a 22.7. He's going to head into the pits. Kind of a hidden entry into the pits here at Okayama. Does catch out quite a few drivers. Andrew Hugill is also on a lap. Current best is a 1:23.1. Needs to find 3 tenths if he wants to jump ahead of Martin Booker for P6. So Hugill currently sits in 7th. Tidy, but I don't know if it's quick. Down into the final corner, misses the apex, onto the power as early as he dares. And out on the runner to the line for Andrew Hugill. It's a 22.7 for Andrew Hugill, and that will take him ahead of Frankie Dixon by 0.02 of a second. What about Dominic Lang-Webb? He's just set a 1:23.2 on his last lap. He's just making his way into Piper corner now. What about Richard Brown? I think he's on the back straight, if I'm not mistaken. He is, so Dominic Lang-Webb should complete his lap first. Okay, so for Andrew Hugill, that last lap does not count. He's already had his 3 laps in qualifying. It would seem that my computer was having some issue connecting it to the YouTube chat, so apologies if you have been sending your messages in and I have not been seeing it. I will try and open up YouTube on my phone. There's Dominic Lang-Webb, punts in a 22.9, which is quicker than his personal best in qualifying of a 23.1, but it will not count as he has already done his 3 laps of qualifying in the session. And I now have YouTube chat up, so if you do want to get your messages in, if my computer doesn't work, I have my phone up and running. So, doubling the chances of me seeing your messages. "20 seconds remaining qualifying before we jump on into the race. The race will see Dan Webster and John McCutcheon lining up on the front row of the grid. Ahead of Simon Edwards, Patrick Charlton, Frankie Dixon, Martin Booker, Andrew Hugill, Dominic Lang-Webb, Richard Brown, Dave Kirkman complete the top 10. Then you've got Paul Clark, Darrell Taylor, Simon Maltby, Phil Glover, Dave Dowson, Graham Brown, Tim Adcock, and that is when my timings decided to refresh. For those of you new to the UK and Ireland Radical Championship, 16-lap race. Pardon me, 18-lap race. I think you can see Dan Webster already lined up on the grid, waiting for 6 drivers to join. Darrell Taylor, John McCutcheon, James Child, Richard Brown just jumps in, Andrew Hugill, and Dominic Lang-Webb. Waiting for one more driver, and that appears to be James Child. Dan Webster in the HPE automotive car. HPE Automotive, the sponsors and our partners here at UK and Ireland Radical Championship, themselves at Hi-Fi Lounge. Still waiting for Dominic Lang-Webb to join us, and then we will be underway for round 9 of the championship. Hopefully we will be underway shortly. Let me know in the chat what your predictions are for this race. And of course, who you are here to support, or if you're just here to watch some entertaining racing. Dan Webster, John McCutcheon, front row of the grid. Simon Edwards and Patrick Charlton make up the second row. And then that looks to be Paul Clark. And we're going to be starting. Dominic Lang-Webb isn't here, but the revs rise at Okayama.
Green flag.
And we go green, and we are underway. A good start from Dan Webster, but a great start from Simon Edwards, who's pulling up alongside McCutcheon on the runner down into turn 1. And John McCutcheon will be able to hold on to the position. It's as you were with Patrick Charlton in P4, Martin Booker finding a way through on Frankie Dixon for P5. They make their way now through the Moss S and down towards the outward curve. Webster from McCutcheon, and the pair of them starting to pull away from Simon Edwards. They're down in P3. McCutcheon will have the toe on Webster on the back straight. He pulls her to the inside. Webster won't go defensive at this early stage in the race. And McCutcheon for the lead on the opening lap. Down the inside into the hairpin. And he gets the job done and dusted. And now the 69 car can just try to get his head down and pull off into the distance, into the sunset. Japan might be the land of the rising sun, but John McCutcheon will be wanting to find the sunset as quickly as possible. Tell you what, Dave Kirkman is right on the back of Paul Clark. Frankie Dixon ahead of these two. Frankie Dixon and Paul Clark running very similar liveries, so easy to get the pair of them mistaken. Paul Clark in the Hi-Fi Lounge car. Dan Webster is in the HPE Automotive car. Best way to tell which one's Paul Clark and Frankie Dixon. Paul Clark has a nice stripe going down the centre of his car, white stripe. Frankie Dixon, meanwhile, has just a front white bonnet, pretty much. Furry sim racing car. Now, this would not be a UK and Ireland radical race without John McCutcheon leading, making a mistake, dropping out of the lead, and then regaining the lead at some point. So, John McCutcheon in all of these recent races, from what I can remember, makes a mistake at some point. And hopefully, for John McCutcheon or any John McCutcheon fans out in the chat, you'll be hoping that that does not happen this time round and that he can pull away, because Dan Webster is fast, and if John McCutcheon makes an error, he might not be able to close back up. You can already see Dan Webster over a second clear from Simon Edwards. Phil Glover in the 7 car, closing in onto the back of Darrell Taylor. He's going to have to be careful because he's coming under pressure from Simon Mortby and Richard Brown, as that's a lock-up from Darrell Taylor. Phil Glover looks for the move now on the outside down into Hobbs. Look for the cutback. Careful when you're looking for the cutback that your teammate doesn't just dive it down your inside. Simon Mortby running in P13 with Richard Brown hot on his heels. And that looks to be Richard Brown going for the move down into turn 1. The 2 lightning yellow and green cars. Better term for it. The 2 fluorescent yellow cars battling it out for P13. Simon Mortby currently running in P13 ahead of Richard Brown. Well, ironically, Richard Brown not in a brown car. Pretty what, Dominic Lang-Webb as they closed in to the back of Chris Kane. Dominic Lang-Webb, I believe, having to start from the pits after not joining into the session in time for the race. Patrick Charlton closing in onto Simon Edwards. He's now 2 seconds behind Dan Webster and John McCutcheon. Let's keep an eye at Dominic Langweb for a bit longer, as that's Chris Kane going down the inside of Tim Adcock. Chris Kane up into P15. Dominic Langweb will try to follow through. Up the inside, down into Redmond. Puff of smoke up ahead. And oh, that's contact. Dominic Langweb gets well out of the way. Chris Kane involved in an incident with Richard Brown, I do believe. Let's just get a rewind and see if we can get a POV of that from Chris Kane's cockpit. Jumping on in then. So Chris Kane, he just understeers. That's on Chris Kane. Chris Kane makes a mistake, gets collected, and then has to spin the car around. Well, not how he wanted his day to be going. But undoubtedly a mistake from Richard Brown. And then Chris Kane just understeered into him. Maybe looking at the car instead of looking at the circuit. An easy mistake to make. Dan Webster then doesn't look for a go at John McCutcheon. No, nice and early on the brakes. Lifting coast down into the corner. Save up some fuel, perhaps. Oh, John McCutcheon has a moment with the rear end. And if you're Dan Webster, you love to see it. The more of these little squirms that McCutcheon makes, the more confident Dan Webster is going to be to put the pressure on and believe that John McCutcheon will make a mistake. Another mistake, a more impactful mistake that will allow Dan Webster slingshot his way through and up into the lead of the race. Tell you what, Simon Morby not too far back from Phil Glover. Remember, he had Richard Brown for company not too long ago, but Richard Brown now out of the race after he's off through Redmond Corner. What about Frankie Dixon? It's on the back of Martin Booker. This is a battle for P5. You can see Patrick Charlton and Simon Webster at the top of your screen, making their way through the Moss S before these two. Frankie Dixon could have a send. No, nice and early on the brakes. Looks for the late apex. And actually it's Martin Booker who gets the better run of the two, despite turning in far earlier for the corner than Frankie. Onto the brakes. Down into the hairpin, and oh no, that's Martin Booker losing the rear. Frankie Dixon will get promoted up into 5th. What about Dave Kirkman? He's on the rear end of Paul Clark for P7. Through Revolver, nice and tidy. On the brakes down into Piper. It looks to be a good run for Dave Kirkman, but just going to be too far back to have the lunge down into Redmond. Dave Kirkman has Dave Dowson and James Child behind him. And there you can see Dave Dowson, P9 ahead of James Child in P10. Last lap, quickest lap, was for Dan Webster. The front two lapping in the 22.3s and everyone else lapping in the high 22s, give or take. And quite a few drivers in the 23s and the 24s as you get further and further down the field. But Dave Kirkman up the gearbox of Paul Clark. Can he look for a way through into Atwood Curve, or will he wait until the back straight and look for the move down into hairpin corner? Kirkman able to hold it much tighter on a mid-corner. And that can look to tuck into the slipstream, but it actually seems to be Dave Dowson who's got the best run of them, and even James Child, an even better run. He goes down the inside of Dave Dowson. James Child moves up at 2P9. Paul Clark, 4.5 seconds behind Martin Booker up ahead. Martin Booker having lost his P5 position to Frankie Dixon a couple of laps ago after losing the back end through the hairpin. Allowed an easy way for Frankie Dixon to work his way up to P5. Dan Webster still trailing by half a second to John McCutcheon. John McCutcheon pumping in a 22.290 that last time round, which is the new fast lap of the race as well. And you can see that on your screen, coming up in purple. Dave Kirkman still close to Paul Clark, but not close enough to go for a move. Also much tighter through turn 1. Into Williams they go. Dave Kirkman, unable to find a way through currently. Paul Clark going defensive with the diagonal, braking down into Atwood curve. And is this Dave Kirkman's opportunity? He seems to have got the best run that he's ever got on Paul Clark. Clark will go defensive. Dave Kirkman tucks in behind and looks to the outside as they make their way down into the braking zone. 4 turn of 5. Paul Clark holds on to the position. Dave Kirkman, will he be able to have the inside down into Revolver corner? Yes, he does. And the 88 car makes his way up into P7. And promptly loses his rear end on corner exit. And this is going to allow Paul Clark to have a look down the inside into Redmond corner. Huge puff of smoke as the wheels lock up. Dave Kirkman has the inside heading down into Hobbs corner. And Paul Clark will regain his position. A minor mistake from Dave Kirkman, but Paul Clark snapped at the opportunity. And Dave Kirkman has to do it all over again. McCutchinson still leading. 4/10 the gap between McCutchinson and Dan Webster. And then it is a further 3 second down to Simon Edwards in P3. Simon Edwards, the man who took the race win last time out at Road Atlanta. At Road America. After what was an unfortunate last lap incident involving John McCutchinson, Dan Webster and Paul Crabb. Paul Crabb is the man at blame. But here comes Dave Kirkman again. Once again, Clark goes defensive. Kirkman looks to the outside. And just like last lap, he won't get the move done into the corner. But unlike last lap, he doesn't have the inside heading into Revolver. He has a look, but Paul Clark slams the door shut in his face. James Child just sitting at the back of this, waiting for an opportunity to present itself. Dave Kirkman, oh, that's the rear end gone. And that's Dave Dowson into the wall, loses the rear end on the exit of Hobbs corner. Dave Dowson heads into the pits. You can see damage to the rear wing of the car and the rear left of the car as well. Oh, that rear end does not look pretty. Absolutely not. What about James Child? Still on the rear end of Dave Kirkman. As they head down into Williams for the 9th time today. This is the three-way battle for P7. Paul Clark from Dave Kirkman from James Child. Then it's a big gap down to Darrell Taylor, who's lost a whole bunch of time after the off that we saw from Dave Dowson. James Child looks to the outside of Dave Kirkman. And now he's going to have the inside down into Revolver, pulling up the exact move that Dave Kirkman did onto Paul Clark just 2 laps ago. And James Child climbs up to P8. See that these three are far, far behind Martin Booker in P6. The gap 9 seconds from Martin Booker to Paul Clark. Tell you what, Dan Webster really close to the back of John McCutchinson. Is he biding his time? How much more pace does Dan Webster have than McCutchinson? Remember, Dan Webster started this race in pole, but it was John McCutchinson who was able to find his way through in the opening few laps. Dominic Langweb having a look down the inside of Simon Maltby into turn 1, and that's Langweb up into P11. Dave Kirkman down in P9. Got Darrell Taylor behind, and then the aforementioned Dominic Langweb and Simon Maltby. See the drivers making some form of an attempt to break the slipstream on each other. On the back straight as Dave Kirkman runs wide. Darrell Taylor still too far back to capitalise, but Darrell Taylor closing back in to these three. Will be bringing Dominic Langweb and Simon Maltby along with him. Dave Kirkman's struggling somewhat to keep up with James Child. Dave Kirkman now 7/10 behind, as that is Darrell Taylor. having a moment with the rear end, and that allows Dominic Lang-Webb to sweep through on the exit of Redmond. Same mistake that we saw from Martin Booker all those laps ago. We're on to lap 11 of 18 here at Okayama. Dan Webster right on the rear end of McCutcheon. And they're coming up, I believe that is Chris Kane that they'll be looking to lap. That is indeed Chris Kane. So it's Scotsman at the front, Scotsman at the rear for the UK and Ireland Radical Championship. It's an almighty sandwich. I hope Scottish bread is good. This is going to be neat to contain the fillings of the rest of the field. Very late on the break from Dan Webster, you could hear that he just had a bit of a left and then decided, actually, no, I want to go further. And after initially going onto the brakes, just went back onto the throttle momentarily. James Child closing in onto Paul Clark. Clark goes defensive. James Child looks to the outside down into turn 1. Going to get the cutback on corner exit down into Williams. He's going to have a much better run than the 24 of Paul Clark, surely. And he tucked right on in behind the he tucked right on in behind the Hi-Fi Lounge car. Looks to the outside into outward curve. Careful, Kirkman almost runs into the rear end of Child. And James Child would not have been a happy bunny if those two had made contact. And now James Child tucks in behind Paul Clark. Clark goes defensive. Child looks to the outside. Kirkman has Dominic Lang-Webb for company behind him. Nice and late on the brakes from James Child. He'll try to hold it around the outside so that he has the inside down into Revolver Corner. And he does just that. James Child in the exact same way that Dave Kirkman found a way through 4 or 5 laps ago. He finds a way through on Paul Clark and he does not lose the rear end coming out of Piper. And James Child can now try to eat into the 12.5 second gap between himself and Martin Booker in P6. Here comes Dominic Lang-Webb on Dave Kirkman. He goes to the inside. Remember, Dominic Lang-Webb had to start from the pits after not joining in time. Paul Clark coming under a lot of pressure. Master and Triker asking, how's the back of the pack looking? Well, it's currently Tim Adcock running in P19. He's a second down on Chris Kane. And Chris Kane's just found a way through on the number 21 car. Fiona Siddons running in P17. Dave Dowson P16. Graham Brown P15. Darrell Taylor P14. And Andrew Hugill in P13. None of them in any battles. It's a rather large gap separating the drivers. That's why we aren't looking in that direction at the moment. But we have to keep our eye on Andrew Hugill because he's closing in onto Phil Glover. We might be seeing some action later on into the race. But for now, this is where the battle looks to be happening. Dave Kirkman, we know he's quicker than Paul Clark. He's found a way through him. He's found a way past Paul Clark once. He made a mistake shortly after and had to yield the position back. Ooh, that's contact. Dave Kirkman runs into the back of Paul Clark through the final corner. And this will allow Dominic Lang-Webb to find a way through up into P9. And Dominic Lang-Webb can now find a way through onto Paul Clark. Dominic Lang-Webb, arguably the quickest of these four. And by these four, I'm including James Child, who only a lap ago found a way through on Paul Clark and has already pulled 1.5 seconds as John McCutcheon and Dan Webster are battling for position. Dan Webster has a look, backs out of the position. Let's just have a quick rewind, see what happened. Oh, there we go. Dan Webster looks for the outside, bit of contact between the two of them. And McCutcheon held on to the position fantastically. Dominic Langweb right on the back of Paul Clark, goes to the outside, nice and late on the brakes. And this seems to be where the drivers make the move on Paul Clark. Will Langweb have the inside down into Revolver? No, he does not. Has to back out of the move. Paul Clark holds on to the position for now. Langweb looking to the inside, late on the brakes, then down into Redmond. Dominic Langweb makes the move work, and Dave Kirkman makes a mistake and comes under pressure from Simon Maltby through Hobbs' corner. Dave Kirkman holds on to P10, but Dominic Langweb is up into P8 and can look to hunt down James Child. 2.3 seconds between the pair of them. Andrew Hugill is the man at the back of this train. And he is closed in onto his teammate Phil Glover. Let's see if he can make any further inroads. The field fairly spread now. So let's ride on board with Dan Webster. Runs in second behind John McCutcheon, the man right in front of us. Dave Kirkman looking for a move. Actually, no, he's been passed by Simon Maltby. Simon Maltby has already found a way through on Dave Kirkman. And Phil Glover will look to follow through as well. Late on the brakes, a lock up for Kirkman. He's able to get the front end turned in regardless. So I think Dave Kirkman must have made a mistake into Atwood Curve, allowing Simon Maltby just to sweep past him on corner exit. Chris Kane on the rear end of Fiona Siddons, and actually already up the inside of Fiona Siddons. Down into turn 1, Chris Kane climbs up to P17. To be expected, he's running about 3.5 seconds a lap quicker than the Matthews Logistics car. The midfield group makes their way onto lap 16 of the race. You see in the background, Graham that's Darrell Taylor, 4 seconds behind these 4. You can just see him sweeping into the corner of your shot every now and then. Tell you what, Webster might be fancying his chances, never mind he's 3 tenths behind. Always good to just have a quick look up to the front of the field. See if there is any incident or any overtake that is looking to happen, but here comes Dave Kirkman on the rear end of Simon Maltby. Maltby won't go defensive, Kirkman to the inside. Maltby's going to try to stick this one round the outside into the hairpin. But Kirkman is long through. Can look to try to close back in onto Paul Clark. Phil Glover in the 7 car. Big puff of smoke. I think that was Dave Kirkman who ran wide into Redmond. Phil Glover tucks in behind Simon Maltby. John McCutcheon, meanwhile, leads by 9 tenths of a second nearly. Bit hot into turn 1 from Simon Maltby. I reckon Phil Glover can find a way through by the end of the race. Diagonal braking from Glover. Might find himself coming under pressure now from his teammate Andrew Hugill. And 2 Repsol radicals make their way onto the back straight. Meanwhile, Dan Webster and McCutcheon have started their final lap. What has happened here? McCutcheon's dropped a position. Where has he done this? He's lost it. He went wide. As we say, it always happens. And now we're starting the final lap of the race. And the penultimate is the final lap of the race, pardon me. And McCutcheon trails by a second. We said it happens every single race. McCutcheon eventually makes a mistake. And he's done it again. And this time there's no time left in the race for him to close back up. Andrew Hugill closing in onto his teammate Phil Glover. As the pair of them have made a mistake, they've dropped behind Daryl Taylor, so I'm not sure what's happened to the two of them, but they have both lost the position. And here comes Andrew Hugel on the rear end of Phil Glover. He looks to the inside, and past his teammate he will go. Is he late enough on the brakes? He is indeed. Phil Glover will have to try to hang around the outside. He will have the inside down into Williams' corner. But Andrew Hugel far enough ahead that he can take his racing line regardless. And up into P13. Dan Webster, though, makes his way into Redmond and leads the race by over a second to John McCutchinson. McCutchinson has made one mistake this race. One notable mistake. And that was enough for Dan Webster to pounce. Dan Webster took pole. And Dan Webster will take the win here at Okayama. John McCutchinson finishes second. And it is Simon Edwards who will come through in what must feel like a lonely P3. But P3 he will take nonetheless. Patrick Charlton down in P4. Ahead of Frankie Dixon in P5. Martin Booker, P6. James Hoodchild has Dominic Lang-Webb hot on his heels. But Dominic Lang-Webb needed at least another lap. Child takes P7. Lang-Webb P8. Paul Clark down in P9. Dave Kirkman P10 ahead of Simon Maltby P11. Daryl Taylor P12. Andrew Hugel P13. Phil Glover drops to P14 in the final few laps. Graham Brown with a very damaged rear wing makes his way through the final corner to claim P15. Dave Dowson, P16. Chris Kane has already been lapped. Dave Dowson is the final remaining driver on the lead lap, down in P16. Remember, Dave Dowson was running with the likes of Dave Kirkman before his mistake. An unfortunate mistake from him. Dave Dowson claims P16. Chris Kane had P17. Fiona Siddons P18. Tim Adcock and Richard Brown both finishing in P19 and P20 respectively. But with that, that brings us to the end of the race. We will be having our driver interviews shortly, so make sure to stay tuned for that. If you do have any questions that you would like me to ask our drivers, make sure to throw those through in the chat, and I will do my absolute best to get them in, as John McCutchinson has joined us. John, commiserations. Unfortunate incident with a couple of laps remaining. John, can you hear us? Okay, John McCutchinson has joined us in the interview room, but we sadly can't hear him yet. Hopefully he will be able to join us at least on the airwaves. I'm sure he's getting that fixed for us. But for those people tuning in now, we've just come to the end of round 9.
I'm okay.
Hi, John. We can hear you now. How are you doing?
Good, mate. Good.
So I was saying on broadcast that every race we tend to see one minor mistake from you, and sadly it happened with 2 minutes or 2 laps remaining. What exactly happened?
I normally take that corner on third gear and I went down to second and just spun the rears. Still a mistake. Schoolboy error.
Do you think if you had a couple more laps you would have been able to close back in onto Dan and find a way through?
No, I don't think so. Dan was fast. He was probably faster than me overall, so he deserved the win. He had good pace.
Well, it's starting to seem now, John, like you've got a bit more competition in the championship. You looking forward to the upcoming races?
No, I want Dan. We'll best to break again and get him out the road. No, seriously, no, it's good. It's always close racing with Dan and Paul and Simon, Martin. They're always good. Good guys to race with.
Well, John, thank you very much for joining me. It was a great race from you up until that point. We got to see a nice battle between yourself and Dan going down into the hairpin. How close was it to you losing the position there?
We made contact, but I don't know if I moved over or he moved down or what happened. I don't really know. I haven't seen it yet. But
look to me at face value just to be a standard racing incident, but I'm sure it could be looked into in more depth.
I'll have a look and let you know.
Well, John, thanks again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in action next week.
Yeah, thanks again, Milky. Cheers.
Wonderful to hear from John McCutchinson. We also have Paul. Sorry, not Paul. We've got Phil Glover with us. Phil, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you, Milky?
Yeah, not doing too bad. Bit of an entertaining race. We saw some battles. I believe you were involved in some battles yourself, especially in the final 5 minutes or so of the race.
Yeah, it's a bit short. I went for the short gearing, so I thought it might help. But one thing it meant is that I wasn't able to take advantage of any draft, really, because I was running out of revs. But yeah, the last lap, I'm not quite sure. I don't know whether maybe Andrew came together with me. I'm not quite sure.
Because you two are teammates, if I recall correctly.
But we are according to the livery, yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any communication between you guys in the race? Did you know that you'd be racing hard for position?
No real communication. I mean, I guess some of the biggest kind of incidents often happen between teammates, don't they?
That is very true. At least the dramatical ones. I didn't quite see the incident. Why don't you talk us through what happened from your perspective?
I can't remember the corner. I think it was after the long straight, but I think I got just rear-ended slightly. Clearly not intentional. Maybe it just. I mean, it's a really slippy track, so maybe he lost a little bit of grip on his braking.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm sure it's not intentional, and I'm sure the pair of you will have a look at the incident nonetheless. Phil, thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome, mate.
All right, next we have our race winner, Dan Webster. Dan, congrats on the race win.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now, you managed to get pole. You looked very quick, but John managed to find a way through on you, and I'm guessing after that point, you were just playing the patient game.
Yeah, he was really quick at the start, and I got a bit squirrely on cold tyres, and he got a run on me. So, yeah, then it was just a case of trying to stay behind him and hope that he made a mistake.
And you say hope that he makes a mistake. He eventually did make one. Did you have a cheeky little smile when you saw him lose the rear end?
I did, so I was delighted.
If it wasn't for that mistake, do you think you could have found a way through on the final lap?
No, I don't, to be honest. I think John was running a bit less wing than me, and he was really quick down the straights. So although I could stay behind him, I don't think I'd have got past him. It was really, really good fun race.
Yeah, and I mean, John said that you seemed really quick, and even if after his incident, he had caught up to you, which he doubts. He doesn't think he would have found a way through. So it seems that you two are very close for pace. John also mentioned the contact that you two had going down into the hairpin, and from his side, he said he wasn't sure whether he moved across you or you moved across him. What was the incident like from your point of view?
It was a really, really light touch. I need to look at the replay myself, but John had gone to the inside, so I basically held him on the inside. I thought I was going in a straight line, but maybe I drifted over, maybe John drifted over, not sure. But there was no harm done, so yeah, it's no problem at all.
Either way, Dan, you and John seem to be having some fun battles. We saw it last time out in America, and hopefully we get to see more battles between the two of you over the remaining 3 races of the season.
Yeah, hope so.
Well, Dan, congrats again on your race win, and we hope to see you again next week.
Yes, thank you.
Right, next, we have Frankie Dixon. Frankie, you weren't able to join us last week, but it's good to see you back racing again today.
Cheers, Milky. Yeah, unfortunately, I was working last week, but free this week, so always jump in with the guys. It's always good fun.
And you managed to have, I'd say at the start it was somewhat entertaining, but then after that point, it kind of got a bit lonely for you.
Yeah, I lost a place at the beginning to Martin. A few laps in, he spun at the hairpin, managed to just miss him. And then, yeah, didn't quite have the pace. Don't think I took enough rear wing off to be able to catch the guys in front when we was on the straight, so we're just pulling away a little bit. So yeah, it was a bit of a lonely race, but then Martin was slowly catching me and putting me under a bit of pressure towards the end. So I was having to put consistently fastish laps in to stay ahead of him and hopefully not make a mistake, which I managed to do. But yeah, it was good fun. It's tough place, Okayama. It's a bit slippy, hard to overtake, but yeah, it was good fun.
That does seem to be the general consensus that I'm getting from the drivers. Slippy and very difficult to overtake. That being said, there is a very long straight going down into the hairpin. So what is it about the circuit that makes it so difficult to overtake at?
I think with having an open setup on in this series, the fast guys, John especially, tends to run with very like almost minimal or zero rear wing. So when he does that, even if you've got draft, it's not enough unless you get a really good run out the corner and he gets a poor one. So yeah, it's just one of them tracks. I don't think the straight is quite long enough.
Okay. Well, Frankie, thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you in action next week as well.
Cheers, Milky. Thank you.
Okay. And I think for our final interview, we have Fiona Siddons joining us. Fiona, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I didn't really enjoy that track with this car. It's a little bit tight for it, I think.
Well, everyone's been pretty much saying that it's a very slippy track and hard to find grip. You managed to have a bit of a battle with Chris Kane towards the end. How long did you manage to hold him behind you for?
Not long. I looked at the relative and it was like 10 seconds behind, and I made a slight mistake in the hairpin, and before I knew it, he was right on my tail, got in the slipstream on the straight, and he went.
Well, Fiona, we have seen some decent results from you so far this series. Can we hope for another one at next week?
Yes, I love Silverstone Circuit, so fingers crossed next week can get into the top 15 again.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. Fiona, thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you in action again next week in Silverstone.
Yeah, see you next week, mate, and thanks for streaming.
No worries at all. And I don't believe anyone else is looking to join in the interview. So with that, we will call it a wrap. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. This has been round 9 of the UK and Ireland Radical Championship, brought to you by Hi-Fi Lounge and HPE Automotive. You can find more about the two companies down. The links for their websites are in the description below. And of course, if you want to join the UK and Ireland Radical Championship yourself, the link to the website and how to sign up is all below in the YouTube description. So make sure to get involved if you've got time to spare on a Thursday evening and want to be involved in some fantastic racing. But thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. And until next week, stay fast and good night.